Have you ever thought that if it wasn't for your team, you would be in a higher rank in Overwatch? What if a game existed where your individual impact mattered immensely and you could easily carry poor teammates that you were indeed better than? On top of that, what if said game used a lot of your pre-existing skills on Overwatch, especially your deep understanding of dynamic ability use? That's Riot's new FPS Valorant, and in this video, I'm going to be breaking down Overwatch versus Valorant to give you the pros and cons of both games and tell you exactly why, as an Overwatch player, you should definitely give Valorant a shot. But real quickly, if you're a fan of GameLeap content, we're in the process of expanding to Valorant, and we would love your support. If you could head on over and smash the subscribe button, we would really appreciate it, but don't worry, we're still going to be pumping out tons of content for this channel as well. All that being said, let's just jump right into it, shall we? With the Valorant closed beta finally out, Valorant is bursting onto the scenes, and a lot of Overwatch players are left with the question, is this a game that I should even be interested in at all? There are a lot of ways that Overwatch and Valorant are completely different games, but there's some really important ways that they're very similar, and I think everyone should give it a try, but let's break them down here. The first thing that you need to understand right off the bat is that Valorant is a true form FPS through and through. Unlike Overwatch, which has dedicated tanks and supports, there is no such tank and support in Valorant. While there is a healer, yes, she uses the exact same guns as everyone else and is just as lethal as everyone else. Overwatch heavily draws influence from MOBAs such as League of Legends and Dota and plays in a way that's more about sustain, healing up your team, and taking space. Things that a Valorant-based game based on FPS mechanics and picks would not necessarily be similar to. Valorant would be much closer to something like CSGO than it would be to something like Overwatch. That being said, there is a dynamic in Valorant, as many of you probably know, the abilities, and in this way, Overwatch players will feel right at home. Giving a gunplay-based game abilities completely change up the dynamic. Having all these cool, interesting abilities that could be used to either block off enemies, secure kills, create mobility or opportunity for your team, add a great layer of depth to Valorant that CSGO can't quite reach, and Overwatch players might take interest in. Specifically, Overwatch DPS players might find great interest in Valorant, especially if you're waiting 15 to 20 minutes to find a single game, like I am. It makes you really frustrated when you could just go to a game like Valorant and probably queue up instantly instead of waiting hours and hours on Overwatch. And that's no fault about the gameplay of Overwatch, that's just the competitive system as it is, and unless Blizzard fixes that, I'm gonna see great problems for Overwatch's DPS players going forward. They might solve the queue problem simply because all the DPS players are going over to Valorant, which could be pretty problematic, so we'll see how Blizzard resolves that. Now let's circle back to the question I proposed to you at the beginning, which ultimately is talking about Elo Hell. In Overwatch, Elo Hell definitely exists, and while I think everyone can rank up past Elo Hell with enough games played, the amount of slog you have to grind through feels almost unbearable sometimes, and then your own tilt will keep you in the rank that you really shouldn't be in because of Elo Hell. This is simply due to the fact that there's an almost parasitic relationship between tanks, DPS, and supports. And unless all of them are helping and enabling each other, it feels like the game isn't even playable or functional. That's why Elo Hell exists, and that's why it's so hard to climb from the lower ranks to the higher ranks. Because of Valorant's emphasis on gunplay, how fast the time to kill is, and how much your individual skill can hard carry a game. How much the individual person has impact on the game matters so immensely. 1v3 against Overwatch seems like something that is insanely difficult to do, but 1v3s in Valorant are going to happen game after game. This means that Elo Hell simply will not exist. If you are tiers above your competition, you're just gonna farm your way from one rank to the next. Doesn't matter if one of your teammates is doing absolutely nothing, you can make it up with your own individual impact, and as such, your individual impact is gonna matter more. That being said, that's not a necessarily mark against Overwatch's true, pure gameplay. When you're playing when everyone is doing their job, the Overwatch gameplay is definitely second to none when everyone's doing their job. But we've all had those games where the healers aren't healing, they're DPSing, the tanks are charging in on cooldown, or the DPS are constantly flanking. You will never have these same problems in Valorant, and even if your teammates are completely incompetent, if you're far better than the average skill level of the lobby, you can still carry in ways that you could never carry in Overwatch. Now let's talk about the pace of Overwatch versus Valorant, and I think this is the biggest reason why Overwatch players might just want to stick with Overwatch instead of moving to Valorant. Valorant's gameplay is definitely going to be far slower. It might even be slower than CSGO. There's going to be a lot of stalemate fights, a lot of information gathering, try to find where the enemy is, and strategically and systematically kill them while you gain information about them. Unlike Overwatch, which is fast-paced, fluid, you die, you respawn, you run back in, you die, you respawn, over and over again, Overwatch is definitely going to be a much quicker game. In fact, the movement in Overwatch is vastly different, where you can crouch and left right spam on a dime, and jumping doesn't greatly diminish your accuracy. But in Valorant, you're gonna need to be standing still or slightly strafing if you want to actually hit your shots, because you're gonna greatly hurt your own accuracy if you're moving around too crazy. While this definitely creates an overall slower game, I wouldn't say the skill cap is less in a game like Valorant, because you really focus on the individual nuances of gunplay, setting up angles, and the big time fundamental gunplays that we talked about multiple times in this channel, such as positioning, valuing your life, crosshair placement, and things like that, which I'm going to get to later on in the video. But before we get to that, let's talk about balance. And I think this is the biggest mark towards Valorant and away from Overwatch that you could possibly see. While yes, Overwatch balance has been lots better recently, for the vast majority of Overwatch's lifetime, there has been a great emphasis on bottom-up balance instead of top-down balance. So let me really explain what the difference of these two things are. Bottom-up balance, or simply balance for the whole community, is something that is made to balance things based on community perception. Think about the angry Mercy mains on the forums that constantly say that their hero is underpowered every single time, even when she's the best hero in the entire game back in Moth meta. Blizzard listens to the casual fans and will balance things appropriately. They refuse to burn bridges, and ultimately, ever since their giant nerf to dive back a long time ago with the induction of Brig, it is obvious that they do not want to balance top down. They would much rather balance for the majority. And while this is a nice goal, it's an optimistic goal, it's not a realistic one. And it doesn't lead to a very fun game when played at the high levels, when characters seem completely unbalanced, and we get metas like Goats for 12 months, which has literally no DPS, or we get metas like Double Shield that have Mei and Doomfist in them that feel unplayable to play against. This type of balance feels insanely poor for the player base, and due to those two examples alone, we lost tons of player bases in Overwatch, and it doesn't seem like Blizzard's overall balance philosophy has changed at all. And before we talk about balance balancing, we definitely need to talk about content. Like, how much content have we been consistently getting for Overwatch? We recently got Echo, but before that, there was so little content in Overwatch. We constantly get repeat events over and over again that no one really is interested in. We get a couple of skins every once in a while, and I know what you're gonna say, Overwatch 2 is in the works, but realistically, Overwatch 2 should have been out ages ago. They've had so much time to produce consistent content for the Overwatch community. It's a paid game when Valorant's gonna be a free game. We pour time, money, and effort into this game, and we're simply not getting that much content back. I still love Overwatch, but it's only reached a fraction of its true potential, and Blizzard really needs to step up if they want to make it worth our time. Now let's compare this to Valorant, which is a top-down balanced game. What do I mean by top-down balance? This means that it's going to be balanced heavily from the pro scene downward. This is exactly how CSGO is balanced. This is exactly how a lot of MOBAs are balanced. And the reason for this is you balance the game for the highest level players, and the lower level players can use that as a model to learn from. This pushes the skill level of everyone in the whole community up, and I think it's overall better for the esport community. It's better for the game altogether, and it's better for high level play, which I greatly appreciate and agree with. Then we're going to talk about content, which we have no idea exactly how much content Valorant's going to release on a daily basis. The game just entered beta, so there's no way we could possibly know that, but there are a few things that we can know about Valorant's other game, League of Legends, that can tell us exactly how much content they will release consistently. We know that League of Legends has consistent patches. Really, League of Legends probably released 12 giant sections of content in the same time frame that Overwatch has released 2 or even 1. That is incredibly sad for Blizzard. When Blizzard has a huge company, they have all these resources that they could be putting in Overwatch, and they're simply not. On top of that, we know for a fact that the Valorant dev team has over 100 developers. Yeah, you heard me right, over 100 developers, and that is incredible for the development of the game. We're going to see a lot of development for the game going forward. There's probably going to be tons of consistent updates, and at least for the first while of its life cycle, Valorant's going to be extremely fresh and vibrant. We're going to have to see how long they keep the game alive into the longevity aspect, like Overwatch is, but frankly, when you're comparing them side by side, it's obvious just how lacking the Overwatch content is, and it's kind of depressing, to be honest, especially for someone like me who has really only played Overwatch for the past 3 years. I've tried other games here and there, but the vast majority of my time has been Overwatch. I've lived and breathed Overwatch, but it seems that Blizzard isn't really putting that much time and effort into making quality content for us, which is frustrating to say the least. Now, I don't want to make this video only hating on Overwatch, because I still love the game, and And GameLeap is still gonna pump out consistent content for the game because frankly, Overwatch is still fantastic. Overwatch at its core is still great and provides a completely unique experience from Valorant. Like I said, Valorant is much more competing with CSGO than it ever is competing with Overwatch. That being said, if you're an Overwatch player, I still think that you should try Valorant because it's gonna help you learn a few things that is really important to improve your game, such as not wasting abilities. Because of the fact that you have to buy your abilities or they charge back once a round, wasting your abilities is a complete no-go in Valorant. And the thing about Overwatch is a lot of people at low ranks constantly waste your abilities. Gunplay is going to be a completely important aspect. Tracking in general is something that people across all ranks really lack. Tracking, flicking, gunplay mechanics, very important for you to develop, and you can develop right into Valorant, even if you're just developing skills to take back into Overwatch. Teamwork and communication in a more hardcore game, in a more hardcore base, teamwork and communication is going to be very on point in a lot of different games, as opposed to Overwatch, where it's completely hit or miss, especially if you're on EU servers where no one ever talks or people are extremely toxic. Positioning is going to be really important, including valuing your life, which go hand in hand. When you have a game where you don't respawn until the end of the round, it's much more punishing and it forces you to learn from your mistakes, as opposed to Overwatch where you die and respawn. Even if that death was a huge mistake and you should feel it, you don't, because you're instantly back in the game, you're instantly respawning, you're moving on, and it makes it harder for you to actually learn from your mistakes when you don't value your life, which is all things that Valorant can actually teach you. Now, all in all, for me personally, I'm going to play both games and I'm going to love both games. I think that overall, though, my DPS playtime in Overwatch, at least for hit scan players, is going to decrease, and that's going to move over to Valorant. But for the unique experiences, the Genjis, the Doomfists, Reinhardts, Winstons, Lucios, Briggs, all these characters are extremely unique to Overwatch, and they're an experience you won't get anywhere else. And I'm still going to enjoy Overwatch for just that. But for all the many players that want a fresh experience, are tired of the lack of updates, what top-down balance based around gunplay, and are completely tired of elo hell or not feeling like you have any impact in your wins or losses, then Valorant is definitely a game you should try for sure. At the very least, give it a shot in this waiting time where we're not getting that much Overwatch content when Overwatch 2 is just around the corner. If this video has got you excited to try Valorant out, definitely go check out our GameLeap Valorant channel we just launched. Don't worry, we're still going to be pumping out consistent uploads for this channel, but our Valorant channel is new and we would appreciate it if you would give us some support. Anyways, if you agree or disagree with my analysis of Overwatch versus Valorant, really understand that I still love Overwatch, but Valorant is a new game that I definitely think that the community deserves to give a fair shake. That being said, if you're not interested in Valorant at all, there's still going to be tons of Overwatch content, so you don't even have to worry about that. I would love to hear your questions, opinions, or roast of Valorant in the comments down below. All that being said, that's all I have for you today. I'm Coach Mills, and until next time.